And it's back. I didn't do a thing. It was just sunspots, I guess. All right, well, sorry for the delay, people who are online. Anyway, I'll recap what I was saying. I don't know how much we lost with that internet blip just now. Essentially, we were talking about the very unfortunate fatality of the bus operator and some of the technical aspects and procedural aspects that are going to be examined. With also some talk of the results of the 441, 442 schedule improvements that were primarily able to be made by the elimination of the, if my notes are correct, the 448, 449, which used to be Marblehead to Downtown Crossing. So by eliminating those routes and focusing those resources on the 441, 442, which also serves Marblehead, I have a note that I took that there was generally a 4-minute reduction in the amount of time waiting, which, if I'm not mistaken, that is due more to the reliability improvements. But I didn't take a note about whether the overall trip time was improved. Just, I think the reliability, the on-time performance was improved. Is that about what you remember from that conversation, from what Rob told us?
I don't remember the details. The theme that I remember was that most of their objectives they had met.
Mm-hmm.
Some they had exceeded, and some they didn't meet because the original objectives were set with one plan in mind,
Mm-hmm.
and they ended up implementing a different plan.
Ah, okay.
That's the broad theme that I remember.
Yeah, and the other takeaway for us was that he was really showing us a pilot of how they plan to evaluate each of the routes.
Mm-hmm.
So that this was just kind of the first of across the 30 routes or so that were going to be adjusted. But this was a generally very positive results of what they did.
Well, the only other note that I had was that the Lynn City Council meeting, which I think is actually happening right now as we speak, was going to vote on the layover spot, which was critical to that short-term 440 and 442. If it wasn't on the agenda tonight, if it's actually at the City Council meeting next week, I'll be able to go. And then we also had some discussions of the change order for the new red and orange line cars, and specific to the
I thought they said
the
that
de-icing.
everything had been actually done.
I'm sorry, say again.
I thought it came out that everything, the change order was moved because everything had been changed already.
A lot of them had been, yeah. I think there was still some, I think the displays and the additional overhead grab bars, I think, were to be implemented. I mean, we can find the details from Bill Wolfgang.
Yeah, the impression that I got, that was largely a formality for decisions that have been either required, like
They got formal sign off on decisions that essentially engineering had already made were the right way to go.
Gotcha.
We did end up having, I think, a little bit we did have a robust conversation around vehicles, around new vehicles that kind of stemmed from that. It started from that because that was kind of the relevant news item, which is why it came up.
Yep.
But we did talk about a little bit about the amount of testing that's required for the red line and orange line cars. And I think I was aware of just how many burning miles needed to occur before they could be put into service.
that was 500 hours.
Yeah, it was 500 hours, which is a lot more than I mean, it makes sense, but it was kind of a shocking number to me. So we talked a little bit about how the red line test track is still not operational. So
Oh no, why not? Do you recall why?
Land dispute.
Oh, that's still going on? Oh, no.
So they're having, if I remember right, they're having to use the regular track at night.
Oh, right.
Okay.
which I think with a couple pilot cars is one thing, but if you suddenly have the factory at full steam and you're getting some cars in every other week, then
Yeah,
it's a
agreed.
different animal. And it's also from my perspective, like I little head houses things they built, like, you know, it's lost money, you know, not that it's some grand palace, but they did build a 2-car long formal shed, and rebuild a track along there for these testing purposes.
Right.
If that ultimately doesn't get used, that's a waste. 2 side notes, directly related to this, but not discussed in our meeting. I just happened to be in Springfield a week and a half ago, so I did drive right by the CRRC building. I saw nothing outside, so you can't see anything, but it does exist. There is a big giant,
You've seen it with your own eyes.
brand new CRRC building that looks like it's big enough to house or construct or assemble multiple.
Peek over the fence and see if.
Yeah, exactly. So it's either a really good, really impressive con job, that they built a really giant warehouse and there's nothing inside. That was fun to see.
You could have just gone to the front door and said, "Let me in. I'm with the Rider Oversight Committee." They would have shown you around.
I happened to have my kids in the car because we were headed to the Dr. Seuss Museum, and they were less interested in seeing
Right.
breaking and entering in the factory.
But one thing I mentioned, sorry to interrupt you, but in all seriousness though, within about the last month or two, the satellite imagery on Google Earth, Google Maps was refreshed and does now show that facility with all of the test tracks running around. It was only, I would say, sometime this calendar year, maybe since December at the most recent, that it was just showing a big empty lot that had been prepped. But now if you look on, like I said, now if you look on Google, you can actually see the building, you can see all the test tracks. It's worth a look, it's very impressive, and maybe I'll pull it up at the subcommittee on the big screen.
Let's talk about more on the subcommittee, but if you're going to Springfield, you take the pike out, you get off at 291, it's like right on the side there. You see it. And I have also, on a second related note, I have now seen a orange car, new orange line car, and a new red line car in the wild in Boston. Not in active use, but in the yard over in South Boston at what's the name of that? Cabot. At Cabot, there are 2 parked out in the yard.
I've been on the new orange line for a bunch of times.
Yeah, I know the orange line. It was the red line. The red line was the more interesting one. You actually saw them side by side, and you get to see the differences in the paint jobs. So you can see an old red line, a new red line, and a new orange line, all happen to be there.
I'm glad you mentioned that. I had forgotten that the 2 red line prototypes had been delivered. I'm glad you reminded me of that.
And the last, to go back to the committee meeting and then close out, because I think we're running low on time. The last thing from a committee perspective, on the vehicle side, was we did talk briefly about the RFP or specs put out there for the green line, for the, I guess, the Type 10s.
Yeah.
And that there are actually 2 different specs that are put up. 2 completely different specs, and they're encouraging vendors to bid on one or both. So it'd be interesting to see where that goes. 2 very different designs. One is the kind of Caterpillar articulated in 7 places design, and one is a little bit more traditional in style.
Closer to the current vehicle.
Yeah.
Current vehicles.
Interesting. And both are feasible? I mean, they both wouldn't be produced, right? It would be one or the other?
One or the other, yes.
But the RFP is available for either. That's
you can say I only want to bid on this one, or I bid on both.
Yeah, we can ask about it some more. It was also interesting to hear some things about the specifications, like the power requirements, that a full vehicle needed to be able to push another full vehicle up the Warren Street incline.
And
disabled,
various
full
places
vehicle
where
vehicle
they're
that
built. One on the Heath Street, but also one on, I think, Boston College. There are 2 details on the green lines.
I'm glad you mentioned that Warren Street, because I had, in my mind, thought that the incline from between North Station going up to Science Park was greater, but I guess if they're referencing the Warren Street incline on the Boston College line, that must be the higher grade.
That's what I remember Jonathan saying.
Excellent. It's good to know. I don't know if that will do anything other than win me a bar bet, but still.
What's the steepest?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and I think that covers it, and hopefully we'll have Wolfgang there.
I sent the invite out. If I missed his reply, I'm certainly going to check again, make sure I didn't overlook a reply from him. I'll make one quick mention of
So
the
is there anything more on the subcommittee reports?
no, not on subcommittee reports. No.
And just so I don't get lost.
Yeah, go for it.
I don't think we have the minutes yet. I didn't see them. Is that right?
I might have missed them in my inbox from Ilza. I'll double check on the way home.
We'll follow up. So we
Yep.
want to vote on those, and then it's external meetings, all business and business.
Yes. I don't want to rehash anything that we already covered talking about the Lynn event. That was a week ago tonight. But I just want to reinforce that not reinforce. I want to comment additionally to what we already heard, that the turnout was surprisingly large. I overheard many of the MassDOT and MBTA people saying, "Oh, this is a good turnout." There were the typical number of state level legislators and local Lynn city legislators. I also saw a woman, I believe her name is Julie, who's the transportation planner for the city of Revere. I met her at the January meeting. She was also there, and quite a wide-ranging group of people, including people who were wearing sweatshirts and T-shirts identifying themselves as a Lynn Senior Action Committee that I had either not known or had forgotten it exists, but they were very vocal in talking with the people at the various stations. So I wanted to specifically mention that there is an advocacy group for the elderly in Lynn, and they are very tied into the transportation needs of that elderly community. I have no idea, but you might find that interesting as well. I guess that's good. I'll leave it at that.
I wanted to mention again the MBTA's public engagement process about public engagement.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't able to go to the public meeting that was here.
Mm-hmm.
They did it in the boardroom, and it was live streamed. I was able to watch there, and one of our members was there and gave some comments. I was happy to see that.
Oh. Were you gesturing to Karen? Could you give a recap? Because I didn't know you were able to be there or were there, so that's great.
I was a little disappointed.
Why is that?
Because I think we didn't need to have to be there, actually.
So from the point of view of a public meeting that explained some things and then gave lots of room for questions and answers, I think that worked effectively. And some of the concerns and questions and so on that came up made sense. A lot of them were about this meeting on the second floor in this imposing building is hard to get to for scheduling and just who can, and you have I think 4 of these public meetings and they're at particular times in particular, for many people, obscure, imposing places.
So you like the commuter rail was in Franklin or something, and it was like a couple miles away from the T-stop, and I can't imagine anybody that didn't live on that particular line bothering to go to it. So anyway.
But again, I encourage everyone to provide their own feedback on the process, and particularly to encourage the kinds of things that we heard about tonight, of going out into the community to meet people where they are, not only, we're not requiring, depending primarily on public meetings where people have to come to you at a particular time and place.
And the whole process whole document, it's only like 8 pages long and it's available on the internet. It's easy reading.
And their online comment form is, or comment process is interesting because it's a paragraph or 3, and then they ask you for comments about that. You don't have to give comments if you don't have any. And then the next section is a paragraph or 3, and you can write comments about that. So it's kind of very easy, both as somebody trying to understand what they're trying to do and offer comments about it, and have them be relevant to the particular aspects that they're talking about.
The bad thing was, it gave very little warning that this was coming up. So, in the old days, anytime there was a public anything, you've got to drop on the bus, you got signs up. They've gotten totally away from that. I think they assume people live on the internet and read everything that's on the internet every day.
Well, I don't want to just be contrary, so I apologize that I'm going to give you a different take on that, even though I don't want to just, like I said, I don't want to just be contradicting you, but for the Lynn transaction meeting that happened a week ago, that took place a week ago, I think it was Thursday before, so what, 3 full business days before, they had a staff of, I think it was 3 people at the Lynn commuter rail station. I think they got there right around the tail end of the peak rush hour. I think they got there around 8 o'clock, and they were handing out flyers for it. And I did see a significant amount of buses for routes that are based out of the Lynn garage with a flyer taped to the window. So for that particular event, I felt like they did a pretty good job of targeting that community. I've got a question about what you were just mentioning. Was there ever, or was there that time, or are you aware of any conversation that's been had about allowing people to participate in a Q&A electronically for meetings like that? I mean, above and beyond filling out a survey or submitting questions, written questions, because I've participated in a couple of online events where you can type in a question and somebody is reading what's typed and will like moderate and then hand the questions off to the person who's actually on camera. Has that ever come up?
I think you should bring that up in one of your comments after you read the public participation. I don't think that came up at all.
I haven't heard that mentioned. But
Okay.
it's reasonable, and and there's a way to comment.
Yeah.
You can even tweet.
I have heard about that. I have heard about events where they'll say, tweet us, we'll curate the tweets and put them forward to the questions. Okay, very good.
Any other?
That's it for me on that one.
External meetings, old business, new business, or public comments? All right. Anyone?
There was something that,
Oh,
Oh, do you have any update on your line?
You haven't mentioned it.
Medical management? Any news?
no, they're now starting to reassemble the 2 trolleys that they first started to rehab. So they were supposed to be done, the first two were done August of last year. I expect them by August of this year, so only a year behind. But that's not a bad thing, because we tie this into our conversation with the new Type 10s, is the first Type 10s aren't going to roll off. They're just doing the request for proposals right now. Those wouldn't roll off the line for another 4 years, and we need that whole fleet in before we get green lines on the Mattapan line. So we've been lucky with a good winter, so we haven't had an issue with cars, but hopefully
We haven't had a winter.
hopefully they'll be speedier with the following 6 after the first 2.
The other thing, I think most of us realize that the E line is going to be down in August, and another line is going to be down in July. Got which one? And it's not clear how. I don't think when they party, it's not clear what kind of replacement or what's going to happen. So it's just something we should be thinking of.
All right,
Motion to adjourn?
seconds, so
Let's
we are adjourned. Thank you, people, for watching online, and we're going to stop the stream now.